Great. So, hi everyone. My name is Akshaj, and I guess when I took Web Lab, all the sites, Chatbook, and everything was really cool. But I really took Web Lab to learn how to make games because I like playing games. I like chatting. I like live interaction. So that's what I'm going to teach you how to do today. So workshop 8 will be on sockets. So how this is going to work is there are going to be 3 parts to this workshop. 1, I'll do a 10-minute recap on a lot of the topics that we covered so far. And 2, we're going to build something cool. You might already know what it is, but I will not spoil the secret yet. And we'll build it using only things that we've already learned. So no sockets yet. And then in part 3, we'll add sockets to whatever we make. And it will be fun. Okay, so let's start the recap. So there's 2 big parts to web dev. It's the front end and the back end. That's how I like to think about it. We got React. How I like to think about React is you got your HTML, your JavaScript, and your CSS, and React just easily combines them. So it's code that generates each of these things kind of mashed up. We also made like a nice little document, 3 pages long, very quick, if you guys would like to refer to it at weblab.to/react-guide. If you ever forgot what React is, want like a refresher, or need like a quick little cheat sheet type thing, will be very useful. But the main power of React is it allows us to split our website into easily manageable pieces, which we call components. So for example, Chatbook is a very involved website, as you guys all probably know. But if we split it up into different components, then each component is a lot more manageable. So we can split it up. So we got our full feed, the big, this big purple rectangle thingy, the whole page. But we can split it up into cards and the new story part. So we got the new story part right here where you submit a new story. And then we got a bunch of cards, which are, there's multiple of them, which is nice because we don't have to like rewrite the code each time. We can just use the card component. And then we can go even further, and the card is divided into a single story and the block of comments. And we can go even further and divide the block of comments into one individual comment and then the new comment button. And outlining it all in a tree like this is kind of nice because, as you guys all probably know, if you just stare at the VS Code and the list of all the files, it's kind of like, oh my God, there's so many files. It's very hard to keep track of everything. But a tree lets us clearly see what is nested in what, and it's very helpful. So I guess a common question that I've heard a lot, and it's also a very important question, is how do you actually get started making an app? Like, you got your idea, but all the workshops we've done have had starter code, and I guess for all your projects, you're kind of starting from a blank slate. I guess you have the skeleton, but other than that, it's from a blank slate. So what I usually think is a good idea is to draw out your own component tree like this with like arrows to see what is a parent of what and what components can be split up into what other components, and then write out the props and the state of every component. Like the props are like things that are passed from one component to their children. So I guess this is really clunky. It's because I'm bad at drawing things in PowerPoint, but it at least gives like some sort of overview of how the props go from one place to another. And it can help you guys stay organized before you even start coding by making a tree. Okay, so now let's get to some JavaScript important things. This is not, map I would not say is a React thing. I guess it's more of like a plain JavaScript thing. But so if you guys remember how map works, it basically takes an array and it takes a function, and you apply the function to every element of the array, and you get a new array. And it's used a lot in React because we often have, we want to make like a list, like want to make like a list of stories, but we have the story information. So we have to map the information to a component. That's why we use map. So if we use a real world example, we can have like a list of turtles, and then we can map to the function of putting a hat on the turtle. And okay, this function takes a turtle and it checks if the turtle name starts with a B. And if it starts with a B, it will put a hat on the turtle. Otherwise, it will not do anything to the turtle. So what will happen is the function will like go in order from Alfred to Billy to Charlie to Shannon to Buka Buka to Floppy, and then apply the function to each one, and we'll end up with, you can guess, we'll end up with Billy and Buka Buka having hats because they start with the letter B. Okay, I will let you guys try to figure out this one. So if you remember what filter is, try figuring out what this filter and map does. I will watch the chat to see. If there are any guesses. Yeah, so it only returns Billy and Buka Buka, just like the previous example. But the difference with filter is that it deletes everyone else. So I guess the thing that filter does is, how it works is, it looks at every turtle in the array, and then it applies the function that it takes the turtle and returns, do I start with the letter B? And what this checks, so it's a function that returns a Boolean. And how filter works is, it keeps everything that the function returns true for, and it deletes everything that the function returns false for. So it will delete everyone except for Billy and Buka Buka. And then we'll apply map, and map will put a hat on both of them. So we're left with these two amazing turtles, Billy and Buka Buka. These graphics were not done by me. They're very good. Okay, so now we are going to figure out how to talk to the backend from the front end. This is important because this, like, the front end and the back end are kind of two separate things in the code. There's like the React is the front end, the API.js is the back end, and you need some way to communicate. And the way we do that is through get and post requests. So this is an example of a get request. You have your endpoint right here. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this thingy right here. And then you got your parameters, the things you pass in to the get request. And then this whole chunk right here goes and talks to the server and comes back with a response. And it comes back with a response, maybe all the songs from the server. Shout out to the people trying to use the Spotify API. Songs, you'll get songs from the server maybe. And then after that happens, you will do something with the songs. For example, you might set the state to be the songs from the server. So yeah, that's how you talk to the backend. Okay, this is also kind of important to understand. You got your functions, you got your constructor, you got your component did mount, you got your render, but what happens when? Okay, so anyone have any guesses of what happens first? Yeah, the constructor. And then it's a little tricky what happens next. I always thought for the longest time that component did mount happens next, but actually render happens once next. Let me just show you the next slide. So render happens once next, and then component did mount happens. And component did mount, usually you'll have all your get and post requests there. So it will send the requests, but not really do anything until it gets a response back. And when it gets a response back, it will set the state. And then the cool thing about render is it will happen again whenever the states or the props change. So whenever you do this dot set state, it will re-render. So it will happen very many times for the rest of the component lifecycle. You will have render being done many, many times. And then the last, I think it's the last front end topic, is the router. And the router is great because we like to have different paths on the URL. Like lots of sites have /something/something. And your app needs to know what page to show depending on what the URL is, because you don't want this to show the wrong site. So the router lets us find the path and then render the right component based off of that. And sometimes we have this little parameter thingy here, user ID, and it lets us access like a random string that could be in the URL as a prop. Okay, perfect. Now let's move on to the backend. So for the backend, we got our servers, and they're the central brain of the website. And all the React, everything we talked about so far, runs on people's computers. So all the users of your website will have their own React code running on their computer, but they all talk to one server. So there's one server probably deployed on Heroku, which we'll talk about in a future lecture. But that's where all the computation usually happens for your website. And before you write any code, the server does not know how to do anything. And the way you teach it to do things is by writing endpoints. And endpoints look kind of like this. So you tell it when you hear /stories, you do this thing. When you hear /story, you do this thing. When you hear /comment, you do this thing. And then the server is very happy because now it knows how to respond to things. And when the clients ask it to do certain tasks, the server can respond because it has this little dictionary thingy that it can like check what the path is, and then it can perform the correct action. How do you tell it to go to another endpoint from the backend? I don't even know if that's possible. There's got to be a way. Someone in another staff can try answering that. But usually it's just the client asking to the server, and then the server responds back to the client. And then we got our databases. So sometimes we have a lot of data we want to store, and we can't store it all in the server. So we store it on MongoDB. So when the user submits a new story, it gets sent to the backend, and then the backend doesn't want to store it in the server. So the backend goes and talks to MongoDB and sends the new story to MongoDB. And the way we do that is by using little snippets of code that can be found in weblab.to/mongo snippets, which is a very, very beautifully formatted page that explains MongoDB. And even if you don't need help with MongoDB, I think it's still worth to look at because of how well it's being. But you should check that out at some point. We also have schemas, which are very important. It's how we tell the database what the objects kind of look like. So like a story would have a creator ID, a creator name, and content. And this is also something you can plan out before you write any code. What schemas would you need for your web page? What things are you trying to store? And information about how to write these is also in the Mongo snippets page. Auth, we had a lecture on auth yesterday. I think the most important takeaway or the biggest thing that you will use in your app from auth is this rec.user thing. And the cool thing about rec.user is whenever you make a request from the front end to the back end, on the back end, when you're dealing with a request, you have access to this thing called rec.user, which gives you information about the user who sent the request. So when a client posts a story, they don't need to pass in their own name as a parameter because you already have access to it using rec.user. And it's useful because this way people can't fake their names. So like if we took in the user's name as a parameter, they could put in a different name than they actually were. And that would be bad. So yeah, our updated view is now we include some authentication from Google. And it's very nice because Google makes sure everything is very secure, safe, and sound, so we don't have to worry about authentication. Great, so we are done with the recaps. Amazing. Okay, so now to move on to part two. Wait, sorry, give me a second. I have a Zoom phone call. I guess I have to pause the lecture to respond to this. Hello.
Great job, Web Labber. Great job, Web Labber. Chatbook is very popular. Unfortunately, our cat stoomers are mad that you have to refresh the page to see new stories. They want live interaction, and cat. Oh, oops, I meant to say chat. Haha, simple mistake, cat and chat, ha ha ha. Please make something for them.
Akshaj, unmute.
Did I mute it? Did I give the whole lecture muted? That would be sad.
We had you before.
Okay. Yeah, so CEO calls are always very unfortunate. But yes, I guess our CEO has a point. Like for Chatbook, I guess a problem is we got all our posts, right? Like, here, let me log in. Oh no. Okay, I'm logged in. And it's very cool. We can comment. Let me try commenting. And we see our comment. But if one of you goes to the site and makes a new story, I'm not going to see it. I have to refresh the page to see it. And that is not very good according to our customers of Chatbook. So we're going to have to change this up a bit. So let's try making Chatbook. So yeah, this is Chatbook. Let me show you guys what Chatbook looks like. We're gonna make this, and it's a live chat website. I'm gonna chat Nikhil right here. Hello. Hi, Nikhil. Oh my God, Justin just came online. Hi, Justin. Wow, lots of people are showing up. Let's see if we can see some live responses. Nikhil said hi. Nikhil, say something else. I wanna show a live response. It's going great. Okay, so yes, we are replacing Facebook Messenger. Isn't that amazing? And we got this all chat right here where you can talk to everyone. Hi. And you can literally see their responses live. I feel like that's so cool. And you can imagine how this would be very useful in a game because you want to see people's text live or whatever they're doing live. And it's not something we know how to do yet, but we will do it today and tomorrow. Okay, so this is our component tree for Chatbook. We got our feed, we got our profile, our not found, amazing. Yes, we can recreate Among Us now with sockets. It'll be very fun. And now, over the next couple of days, we'll add Chatbook. And this is what the component tree for Chatbook will look like. So let's plan this out. Whenever we make a site, we gotta plan everything before we jump into the code. So, oh yeah, also, I think these plans will be useful during the actual workshop part because it's always nice to refer back to the plan. So feel free to open the slides or something, and maybe not yet, but eventually when we get to the workshop part. Okay, so Chatbook looks like this, as you guys saw, and we're gonna divide it into components. So our next division will be the list of open chats and the actual chat window place. We're actually not gonna do the chat list part today. We'll do that tomorrow. So today we're only going to make this thing, but it's still great because we still get a group chat where we can chat with everyone live. I feel like that's pretty cool. And we can further divide chat lists into single user, as you see. We can further divide chat into one message and the new message place. So let's talk about the props and states. I also like to plan out the props and states before jumping into any code. I think it helps. So here's how we're going to do it. We're actually going to store all the state in the top level component, which is a thing that it's a common pattern, I would say. So we're going to store this thing called active chat in Chatbook. Remember, Chatbook is the whole page. And what active chat will be is it will be a list of messages, so like an array of messages, and a recipient, which will be a user. So for example, here, these are the list of messages, as you see. And then the user is all chat. I know, all chat is not a real user. However, we're gonna make all chat a dummy user because like everything else here is users. So all chat will be like a dummy user that we create. But yeah, and if you think about it, that's really all we need in this state. We just need a list of messages and who we're chatting with. So that will go here. Yeah, okay. We do also have to keep track of the people online. That will be a tomorrow problem because we're not doing this part today. So Nikhil can help you guys with that tomorrow. But for today, this is all we need in this state. And then in these sub little component thingies, since all the information is up here, it only really needs to be read-only down here because like all the actual stuff will be happening in here and these things will just be displaying the stuff that's up here. So these can be props. We can just pass down all the information as props. So we'll pass down everything down to chat because everything has to be rendered in here. And then further we'll make a bunch of single message components and pass one message to each of them. And then we'll pass the recipient to our new message component because we need to know who to send the message to. So that will go down here. Perfect. This will be important to refer back to, I would say. And let's talk about our backend plan. So for the backend, we only really need 2 endpoints because we're only doing 2 things if you really think about it. We're just, when they come onto the web page, they need to get all of the messages to show, right? And then when they click submit, they need to post one message to everyone. So those are really the 2 only things that the server needs to know how to do because those are the only 2 things the client will ask the server to do. So yeah, here's an example of clients asking the server to do these things, and our server eventually will be able to do them. And yeah, this tomorrow thingy is tomorrow we'll want to be able to get all the messages for a specific user. So like when I open my DMs with Nikhil, for example, we want to get all the messages between me and Nikhil. So that will be a tomorrow thing. For now, we'll just get all of the messages because we're making all chat, the group chat on the web page. So yeah, to recap, this is our front end plan. It's very nice little props and state here. And this is our back end plan. Front end plan, back end plan. Great. So now let's actually make it. Great. So I put these little reminder things here because when I dry run this lecture, I always forgot to do these. So you don't have to do this yet. I'll just do it. Okay, let's git fetch, git reset, hard, git checkout, git starter. Let me drink some water real quick. Yes, I realized I have to charge my computer. Okay, let's make Chatbook. Step 1. Okay, so let's start with the front end. That seems like a good idea. Let's start by making this thingy right here. So we're going to hard code 2 messages. These are just hard coded messages. We didn't actually talk to the server or anything. And we're going to make this input box. And when we click submit, it will just log it to the console. And I guess the advantage of this is now you can chat with yourself, which is still a decent web page, even though it is not what we want. I think it still has some functionality. Oh, also, if you want to see those front end and back end plans, you should go to this link, weblab.to/chatbookdocs. Having that open will be helpful during the workshop. Okay, so step 1, you guys can just watch me do this. These pop-up things are very confusing, I know, but it's just for my reference in that this is the order that I'm going to do step 1 in. So let's dive right in. I'm going to start with new message, and we're going to write the front end for this. So let's go to the code. Let's go to the new message. As you remember, new message is the part where you type in a message and hit submit. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a component that we already wrote called new post input. It's very nice when things have already been written. All the new post input is also, can you guys see this well? Is it zoomed in enough? Nice. So yeah, it's just an input and then a button that has submit on it. Oh, I can make it a little bigger. Command plus, does that work? So yeah, it's an input and a button. So we're just going to use it. So new message is right here. We're going to use it by typing new post input, default text. It takes in a prop called default text. You can like scroll up to see the prop. And it takes another prop called on submit. So what do you do when they click submit? And we're going to make this a function called this dot send message. And send message is a function that we're going to define right here. And it will take in the message. And we're just going to console log it. Nothing too complicated, just console log the message. Great. We're done with new message. Very simple because a lot of the code was pre-written, but we just use the component, so it's very nice. Let's move on to single message. So that's one of these single messages thingies right here. Let me find where that is in the code. I've also been training my typing speed a lot for this lecture, by the way, because I will have to do this quickly. I'll just speed type this right here. Bam. Okay, that was very nice. All this is div with some nice CSS, and oh, I'll hide the file explorer. How do I hide this? Oh, okay. So there's a single message right here, and it takes in, if you remember the props that were passed down to single message, it's in your Chatbook docs. One of them is, actually it's only the message. So we're gonna look at the message prop, and in the Chatbook docs, it tells you what a message looks like, and a message is an object with a sender and content. So we're gonna get the sender, and we're going to get the sender's name because the sender is a user. We're going to put a colon, and then we're going to put the content of the message. Perfect. Okay, moving on to the next step. So we did new message. We did single message. Now let's do chat. You remember chat takes the messages and the recipient as props, and we're gonna have to pass them down to single message and new message. So chat's gonna have to make components for single message and new message. So let's do that. Let's go to chat. I'll use my typing speed to type this. So all this is all these class names are just pre-written CSS, and we're gonna put chatting with the recipient's name because we're indexing into our prop, and we're getting the recipient attribute, and we're getting the name attribute of the recipient. And then we're going to take the messages, which is also a prop, or it's an attribute of the data prop. And we're going to use our handy dandy map function, if you remember that. And we're going to map each message to a single message using the single message component. If you remember, when you put in two parameters to the map function, the second one is the index. So this is an array, and I will just be 0, 1, 2, etc. So wait, I would actually suggest you don't follow along in your VS Code, by the way, because I'm probably going way too fast, considering my typing speed is very insane. So I'm basically copying and pasting code. So I don't think I would be able to follow along by typing. But okay, so when you put in the index, when you put in the second parameter to the map function, it just gets the index. So it will be 0, and then it'll be 1, and it'll be 2 for the next message, etc. And we're passing it into the key thingy here, because if you remember, when you like do a map and get a lot of like single messages, you want to distinguish them somehow. So you'll put that in the key. Okay, great. We got our messages. And then we need our new message thingy, the place where you type in a message and hit submit. So we'll just create a component for that, and we'll pass in the recipient prop that we have from our prop. So we're like the middleman. Chat is the middleman in this scenario because it takes in the stuff from Chatbook, which is its parent, and passes it down to single message and new message. See, chat is the middleman right here. Chatbook sends the data to chat, and chat just sends it along its way. Yeah, so this is amazing. We did 3 out of the 4 components already. Very, very nice. Okay, so this is the big component right here. So let's tackle that. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Chatbook. I've always had trouble finding where Chatbook is on this list. Oh, it's right here. Okay, so let's write the code for Chatbook. See, this is the Chatbook component. I did not lie to you. It's Chatbook. It says that right here. So in our render, let's return Chatbook. And also, if you remember, like Chatbook is basically just the chat part because there's also the chat list on the side. Like see this chat list right here, and then the chat. But the chat list is the tomorrow problem. So we're only going to put in the chat. So we got a chat here. And we're passing in as a prop the recipient and the messages, which is our active, it's our active chat thingy. Remember, active chat is the state. So we're passing that in. But we're actually just going to hard code it. So we're going to define these variables, all chat and test messages, just up here. We'll just hard code it. Getting my typing ready. Yeah, okay. So test messages is just like a bunch of little dummy messages. And all chat is just a dummy user, because remember, we're making all chat be a dummy user because we want to chat with specific users, but everyone should also count as a user. So yes. And voila, I think that should be it. And now I can actually go to localhost 5000 and I can wait for it to log in. And then I can go to chat and we have our hard-coded messages, very nice. And if I inspect element, I can type in a new message, hello, oh, that works, people, and it just console logs message. Yay. Okay, back to the slides. So that was a lot. I apologize for how much that was, but it was step one. I think it was by far the longest step. So now let me do a quick poll in the chat. Would you guys prefer me to do the next step or you guys to try it on your own for a bit? Out of curiosity. No, I wanted y'all to try it for a bit. Okay, I'll do it, fine. Yeah, I really apologize about the speed, but okay. We're not at the socket part yet, so this is just setup. Okay. So, yeah, so let me go to the next step. So, okay, so the next step is to change the state. So if you remember, we kind of hard-coded the chat messages, right? And we're still gonna hard-code the chat messages, but we want it to actually be a state. We didn't define a state at all at any point. So the only change that step 2 is to make active chat a state. So here, let me make this more clear. So active chat, if you guys look at the Chatbook docs, you'll see active chat is the list of messages and the recipient. So in order to have this be a state, we got to go into Chatbook and we got to do this dot state right here. And let's set the active chat attribute to be, let's set the recipient. So this value right here, when we put in a value in the constructor state, it's just initializing it, essentially. That's how you can think about it. So we'll just initialize it to be the dummy stuff. So the fake messages and our all chat user. And now instead of permanently being these dummy stuff, it's just initialized to be the dummy stuff. And now we can use this dot set state to change active chat. And when we do that, it will re-render. So it's just hard-coded at the beginning. It's not permanently hard-coded. I think it would be wise to pause a bit. I think maybe I can try answering some questions if you guys have any. But yeah, what we've done so far is we've coded the front end for new message. We've coded the front end for single message. We coded the front end for chat. These are all just taking in props and displaying them, basically. They're not doing any fancy state stuff. And then Chatbook, we're just hard coding some initial information into the state. And that's it, yeah. Okay, how can we pass state as prop if private? Yeah, so that's a good question. State is technically not private. I guess private is a word that we used because you can think of state as like information specific to a component, but oftentimes you want to use it in the children. So the way we do that is we pass the state as a prop. And that way the Chatbook's children can use the state wherever they want. Yeah, no problem. Is it copied over or is it passed by pointer? It's read only. So I guess I haven't really thought about that, but you can't change it. So either way, like I guess the main distinguishing thing between those two is that you can't. It would be how you change it and what happens when you change it, but either way, you can't change a prop. You can't change a prop in the place where the prop is passed to, if that makes sense. So like chat cannot change this prop right here. Single message cannot change this prop. So either way, it's just, you're basically just using them. You're not changing them. Yes, it is read only. Okay, I'll move on to the next step if that's okay. I had that slide, the Git checkout one, but I still didn't do it. So I guess I'm just very forgetful. Let me do that. Git reset --hard. Git checkout W8 step 1. It's probably 2 now. Yes, this is the instruction slide for step 2. Okay, so we have gotten onto the same page. Step 3 I plan to do, but I'll make you guys do step 4 because we skipped over step 2. Okay, step 3. So we kind of tackled a lot of the front end in step 1. We went very, very fast, but we did get through all of the front end components. So we should start writing the back end, I would say. So there's 3 main components in the backend. First is we got to write the schema for what a message looks like because our server doesn't really know what fields we want a message to have. And then we want to write each of these 2 backend methods. So let me go back to my code. So let's do those 3 things. So step 1 was add a schema. So it's always a struggle to find the place in the, oh, it's in server. So let's write a schema. Again, my typing speed is impeccable. Okay. I know Command P is to search for files, but I still never do it. I don't know why. Okay, so our message, the important things are sender, because we want to know who sent the message. And sender will be a user object. So a user has an ID and a name. We also want recipient. So we need to know who sent it. We don't want to know who's receiving it. For purposes of this lecture, recipient will usually be all chat, because all the messages are going to be sent to all chat. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make the ID the string all chat. I think it's like something like this. And we're also going to make the name all chat. But when Nikhil gives his lecture tomorrow, we'll actually have real recipients, because we want DMs. And then we'll have the content of the message, the actual text. And we don't have to do this, but it's nice. Like typically in the chat app, you want to see when people send a message. So we can store the timestamp of the message. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. And this default thing is basically setting a default value if we don't specify it, because we won't specify it. Okay. Perfect. And then let's go to our API. And let's write our two endpoints. I'm probably going to go kind of fast through the rest of this like setup stuff. I apologize. I just have to eventually talk about sockets. So that's the meat of this lecture, I would say. Let's write this message root. So let's do router.post message auth.ensure login res. And I'm going to put this console log so we can see it log in the console that we received the message. And then after that, we're going to, oh my God, clearly I can't type. We're going to make a message object. So the way we do that is new message. And we're going to pass in a recipient, which is going to be taken as a parameter. We're going to pass in a sender, which will have an ID, which we get from rec.user, which is our auth thingy. Remember, the thing that's very important to know about auth is that you can use rec.user. And then we want the content of the message, which will also be a parameter. And after we create this message, we want to save it. And the way we save MongoDB messages is we just type the message .save. Nice. And okay, we want to do our other thingy, our other endpoint. So let's do get request. And if you look at the Mongo snippets, it will tell you how to get all the messages with a certain recipient ID. And the way we do that is we use the .find, and we can do recipient.id is all chat. And that will get us all the messages that are sent to all chat. And that's what we want to return. And then this is actually a promise, so we can do a .send. And res.send messages sends it back to the front end. Okay, that's step 3. So we have done this. We have defined what a message is, and we have written the backend for the two things that we need the server to know how to do. Great. On second thought, I think I'll try to do step 4 because, okay, I apologize that I haven't been letting you guys work on any of the steps, but I think I'll let you guys work on the last step. I'll make a deal. Okay. Okay, step 4 is completing send message. So, okay, let's think about what we've done so far. We wrote all the front end stuff. We wrote all the back end stuff. But the only thing we need now is to connect the front end to the back end. So the server knows how to respond to all the requests. We just need the client to actually make the request. So let's go to the client, and let me find the client. I know, Command P, yes, this exists, but yes, I like searching the easy way. Okay, so here is our submit button. And right now we just console logged. So let's actually submit. That would be nice. So we're going to write a post. And we're going to use our message route. And we're going to pass in a parameter. And if you look back to api.js, you'll see that we assume that they pass in a recipient. And we pass in content. So what should we put here? Well, the content of the message is the value, because that's how onSubmit works. But who's the recipient? Well, if you remember, we pass in the recipient as a prop to new message. Also, by the way, whenever I say if you remember, there's no way, it's like impossible to actually remember this. So what I really mean is, if you look at the Chatbook docs, then you will see where the props are passed, and you can see that the recipient is passed to the prop, this.props.recipient. The only reason I remember it is because I have an answer key in front of me, which is very nice. Okay, so this line of code is actually all we need, because it just posts to the database, sorry, it posts to the server, and we just coded the server. We just told the server how to respond to this. So that's already taken care of. We just needed to make the request, and it's all good. So this is done. Let's get on the same page. I'll get on the same page with the slides. Git reset hard. Git checkout 28, step 4. Oh, yeah, wait, let me show you guys what we've done so far. So, oh no. Yes, okay. So we made it so that now when you type a message, let's see if this works. Well, we got rid of the console log, but what we added is now our terminal where we ran npm start said, receive the chat message from me. Let's see if this works. So we actually posted to the server. Nice. However, if we refresh, nothing will happen. And that's because we hard-coded the messages. So the last step is to not hard-code the messages. So we got to take advantage of our last little thingy, our last little endpoint. So let's do that. So if you remember, there were two endpoints. We just used one of them in step 4. So we're going to use the other one. So let's go to Chatbook. Every time I scroll the wrong way for Chatbook. Okay. Make this smaller. Okay, so basically, when a user comes onto the site, we want them to see all of the messages. So to do that, we got to put in the component did mount, because that's what happens at the very beginning, if you remember the life cycle. It's like it does the constructor, and then does the first render, and then does component did mount. And that's where we put all of our post and get requests. So we'll put our post get request, which is going to go in a function. We're going to load the message history. And this will be a function that we define right here. And let's load the message history of all chat. Meaning, we'll get all the messages that were sent to all chat of the recipient. So the way we do that is we do a get request. And we'll pass in the recipient ID, because that was one of the parameters that we used in the backend. And the recipient ID is just, we have our recipient user object right here, and we'll just index to get the ID. And that's not it, because we're getting it, and we have to do something with what the server sends back. So to do that, we use the .then, and we have our messages. And we want to set the state to be this .set state. Active chat. So we're changing active chat. If you remember, active chat is basically the only state in the whole app, in the whole chat book. And it is the list of messages and the person we're sending the messages to. So we want the person we're sending the messages to be the recipient, the same recipient who we're loading the message history for. And we want the messages to be these messages that we just got from the server. And that is it. And let's see it in action. I'm going to refresh. Always scares me when this odd thing happens. Wow, we just got all the messages from the database, from the server. Very nice. From all of the years of web lab history. Okay, so we're actually done with this section of the lecture, because this is a fully functional chat app. We can like type a message, hi, and then we have to refresh the page because we have to get all the messages again. And we see hi, and Karen just said hello within the time that I refreshed the page. Very impressive. But yeah, we have to refresh the page each time. And that's not what we wanted, because if you remember, our CEO had some different ideas. They wanted live interaction and no refreshing the page. They wanted things to appear instantly. So let's talk about that. Need a water break. Okay, it's time for what you came for, sockets. How do you make this in real time? Okay, so basically how this works, or how we want it to work, is the client sends a new message to the server, says meow. And then the server should tell all of the other clients, hey, Fluffy just said meow. And then the other clients would just update it in their client and we'd be done. Damn, that was so easy. Very, very simple. Just say meow uh, when the server tells you to. That would be very nice, but it does not work that way. And the problem is, server is a type of human that can't initiate conversations. What that means is that if the client ever talks to the server can respond to that particular client. But the server cannot initiate conversation with any of the other clients. So that's a problem because if you're relying on the server to communicate with other clients, like the server would not be able to tell the other people what you just said. So that's a very, very sad problem. And there is a solution that we can think of to this. And the solution is, okay, imagine you have a group of friends and you're trying to communicate with each other. So how you do it is, the first one of you tells the server your message. Hey, I want to say hi to everyone else. And then every 2 seconds, every single person asks the server, hey, are there any new messages? And the server says, no, nothing yet to every single other person. And this happens every 2 seconds until the server finally has a message for that person. And then the server will tell him the message. So Jeff has to ask the server every 2 seconds to see if there are any new messages. The reason we have to do this is the server cannot initiate conversation. So the clients would have to initiate conversation every 2 seconds. And this is indeed a solution that could lead to an app because it would work. Like, there's nothing that doesn't work about this. However, it is very inefficient because we don't want to be continuously asking the server something every 2 seconds. Imagine if you had to talk to your friend and the way you did it was by asking a third party if your friend had said anything in the last 2 seconds, every 2 seconds. I think that would be very inefficient. So now the reasonable question is there a better way? And the answer is yes. And the way we do this is through sockets. And you're going to be mad at me, but the solution is to just teach the server how to initiate conversations. Yes, a very, very dumb solution. But indeed, we can just teach the server how to initiate conversation. And that makes it so much simpler because now you can tell the server something and they can just tell everyone else. So yeah, that is what sockets do. Very powerful. So there's a small caveat, and I think oftentimes the server is a bit slow. It needs to learn things in like a step-by-step manner. So we won't teach it how to initiate conversations fully today. Tomorrow we'll teach you how to initiate a conversation with a specific person. Today we're just going to have the server shout to everyone at the same time. So whenever you have something to say, you will tell the server the message, and it will shout to everyone that message. And then people can choose whether or not they want to listen to it. But indeed, this is a way that you could have a conversation in theory. You could tell it to a megaphone, and the megaphone would shout it to everyone, and you could converse. So yes, the server sends the message to everyone. Nice. So I know I've been talking in analogies for very long, and you're like, okay, we get it. Just get to the code. Okay, I'll get to the code. So this is the code. How it works is, so we wrote this thing called Socket Manager for you. And Socket Manager, if you're curious, you can look at it in serversocket.js in the skeleton code. It's also in Chatbook. But you don't need to. It's not like extremely important to understand or anything, because you can just use it in the ways that are allowed. So one way you can use it is to shout to everyone. And the way to shout to everyone is type in socketmanager.getio.emit, the title, and then the data. So any shout, you need to title it with some string, and then you can shout some data. So data can be an object, a list, a string, anything. But how like if you would do a message, then maybe you could shout, "Hey, I have a new message," and then the data would be the actual message. So the title is just like a short descriptor type thing. Yeah, you can use that manager for any real-time app. It doesn't have to be a chat app. And then we actually need to tell the client how to listen for the message. So the way we do that is using the socket.on thing. This will typically go in the component did mount. And the way we use it is we type socket.on and we put in the first parameter is the event name that we're listening for. So when we hear the server shout, new message, we got a new message, then we have to do some function. So the function will take in the data as a parameter. So it will be passed in the data of the message. And typically we'll do something with the message. So in our chat app, we'll listen for the new message event. And when we hear it, we'll take the new message and we'll add it to our message list. And that's it. You just have to understand these two things, the shouting and the listening. And using shouting and listening, you can make a conversation happen between the server and the client in real time. So let's go over a toy example per se. I know I'm getting back to analogies, but this one has some code, so it's okay. So imagine you have the professor, and the professor is a server. And the professor emits, meaning it shouts to all of the students, hey, there's a new P set. And then it passes in the P set as an object. Then the students would need to have a socket.on in their component did mount, and they would listen for the event new P set. And when they hear that event, they would apply the working function to the new P set. So this is how it would look in the code. You would have your socket manager.getio.emit, the new P set. This would all be in the server in api.js because the professor is the server. And then on the client side, in the student's component did mount, they would listen for the event new P set, and they would do the P set. Or they would apply some function to the P set, which is typically procrastinate until it's due and then solve the questions. So yeah, this is another diagram explaining how sockets work. You just shout the message with a title usually, and then the clients listen for the message. They listen for the title, sorry, and when they hear the title, they apply a function onto the data that they receive. Okay, so finally what you're waiting for. We're gonna add live interaction and live chatting to Chatbook. Okay, I will give you guys, I guess 5-ish, maybe more than 5 minutes to try to figure this out. So finally it's your turn. But this is basically like all of Sockets. It's not all of Sockets, we got stuff tomorrow, but this is taking the website from no sockets to fully working in the sense that you can chat and see things live. So this is a lot of functionality that's going to be added in this step. So let's go back to, this is something that you guys can do with me. I'll give you some time to work on it. Let's git reset --hard, git checkout w8 stuff 5. And if I can show you the next slide. So step 6 is going to be add sockets to see the messages instantly. So I put the line numbers that you will have to change here. There's 2 instances in the code that you'll have to change. One is the shouting, when the server shouts to everyone, and the other is the listening from the client. So the shouting will just be look like every single shout will look like this. It will be socket manager.getIO.emit. There'll be a title. You can make the title whatever you want. It's just that these 2 strings have to match because you got to listen for the title. And then you put in data, which will be the message that you just made. And then on the front end, you will listen for the title. And then you will take in this text, by the way, it can be any, like, it's just a variable. So this could be message, this could be data, it can be anything. But like, you will take in whatever was sent as data, which is the message, and you'll do something to it. And what you'll do to it is you'll add it to your current message list. So go give you guys some time to, if you want, you can go into breakout rooms or you can stay here and hopefully you can see a live message app work. Good luck. I'll play some music maybe. I can also answer questions in the chat if you have some. Hello. Yeah, I don't know how to broadcast to people in breakout rooms, but maybe Kai can figure out how to get them back.
Wait, do you want to bring people back?
Yeah, do you know how to do that?
Wait, if you open breakout rooms on the bottom, there's a button that says broadcast to all.
Broadcast to all. Isn't there like .init or something?
Huh?
Nothing. I can't find it. Oh. I'm shouting to everyone in the breakout rooms. I feel like a server. That's a joke that the Chatbook CEO would laugh at. Okay, hopefully people are back. Yeah, so I guess it's not that satisfying because remember the server is on your own computer right now. So you won't like see other people's messages because it's your own server. But I guarantee you, if you take your code and deploy it onto Heroku, then it will work and you will be able to see everyone's messages live. So the code is all correct. Okay, so let me show you guys how to do this. Okay, so that step actually wasn't supposed to be one that I asked you guys to do, but I just thought it would be a fun thing. So there's two things we got to do here. We got to shout and we got to listen. So let's do the easier one first. Let's shout. So let's go to api.js. And when we post a message, so in our post message thing right here, remember we save it to the database, and now we're going to shout. So we're going to type socket manager.getIO.emit. The title will be message, and then we'll pass in the message. Great. That's the easier half of the equation. The harder half, and I think it was probably not obvious what to do in the listener, but thankfully we have an answer key, so I can just show you guys what it says. So in Chatbook, all the socket.ons go in the component did mount. So that is a good thing to remember. So we're going to put a socket.on right here and listen for the title message, because that's the title we gave to our shout thing. So we're going to listen for this title, and whatever data we get, let's call it message, because we're going to get one message. And what we can do is we're going to set state. Let's use the pre-state thingy. The pre-state thingy is when we pass in a function to this set state and takes in the previous state as an input. And we can set active chat to be what we want it to be now. So what we want it to be is the recipient should just be the previous recipient. It's not like the recipient changes when you get a new message. So because we're still looking at the same chat. So we want the recipient to be the same one. And then the messages are the old messages. These are all the messages that already existed. And we want to concatenate it with our new message. So we want to add the new message to the end of this list. One way to do this is use the .concat. You just concatenate the message to the end of our list of messages. Spell messages wrong. Feel like, oh, I think this needs parentheses or something. Yeah. And that's it. We just needed to update the state to be the new thing that it's supposed to be. So the only change to the state, it used to be a recipient and the list of messages. The only change is we add one message to the list of messages. And what this lets us do is we can reload the page. And I'm going to log in. Remember, this is still local. So in order for it to be like a public chat site where we all can chat, we would have to deploy it somewhere to Heroku. But for now, this is just local. But I can chat with myself. And if I make like a incognito tab and logged in with a different Gmail, I could, or like I opened a different browser and logged in with a different Gmail, I could chat with myself and see it live. Or this is live. I'm going to hit submit. And it appears. Perfect. So yeah, that's Chatbook. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing how sockets can be used. The two big takeaways from this lecture are the shouting and the listening. So the .emit and the .on. So knowing when to use the dot emit, when to use the dot on, where they go, I think those, if you understand that, then you know how to use sockets. So I don't know if there are any announcements before lunch. You all are probably hungry. If anyone has any announcements.
Just on sponsor lectures, we have 2 sponsor lectures today. The first one is from Facebook. It'll be at 3, and it won't be recorded, so make sure you're here live. They'll be talking about data management and using an API or a library called GraphQL. And then after that, we have another one at 4 p.m. from Gather. And Gather is actually going to be doing a workshop on building real-time games. So if you're curious, if you're implementing a game, if you're curious about that, definitely do that. Also, yeah, we have a YouTube channel for the class. We're almost near 1,000 subscribers, and once we hit 1,000, we can monetize on our account. So go to, I hope this doesn't get us in trouble if I announce this, but go to weblab.to/YouTube and hit that subscribe, smash the subscribe button.
I've always wanted to say smash that like button.
Yeah, I think we'll be back at 3:05 for Facebook's lecture.
Okay, see you guys. Have a good lunch.